So I sold my Trek Slash and bought this budget bike back here to find out how much money you really need to spend on a mountain bike. Do you really need all those fancy high-end components and that $7,000 to $10,000 price tag that comes along with it? Or will a bike like this back here handle everything that average riders like me and you can throw at it? What's up, you guys? My name is Jared, and in today's video, I'm gonna be going over my initial impressions after purchasing a budget bike. This is the Marin Alpine Trail 7, but I don't want you to focus too much on the brand. I just want you to focus on the fact that this is a budget enduro bike, and most of the bikes within this price range are gonna come with the same exact components when it comes to suspension, brakes, dropper post, just things like that. So this is a good test to figure out how these perform, what are my initial thoughts and impressions of these budget components, and then future upgrades I think I'm gonna need to do. My goal is to do like the minimum amount of upgrades possible to get this bike ready to smash everything from like black diamond trails, bike parks. I even plan on entering an enduro race this year, so I definitely want this bike to be completely capable, but the most cost-friendly way possible, and understanding that I'm just an average rider. I'm not at that pro level where I really think you need all those fancy high-end components that they're trying to sell to us. So this is a long travel 29er with 150 millimeters of travel in the rear, 160 mils of travel up front, and it's definitely got that long, slack, and low geometry with a 515 mil reach, so nice long reach, 63.5 degree head tube angle, so definitely got a slack head tube angle, and a 78 degree seat tube angle. But let's go ahead and move in through the components, and as I talk about each one, like I said, I'll talk about if I think I need to upgrade, future upgrades, and future videos that I got coming your guys' way. So let's go ahead and start with the suspension. So on the front right here, you got the RockShox Yari RC fork with 160 mils of travel. Like I said, it's just got basic compression dial right here. So it does have, you know, I think it's like 10 clicks of compression up here on the top. And then it's got one simple low speed rebound down here on the bottom. I got this fork set to just the factory recommended settings right now with, I think it didn't tell me the amount of clicks of compression. So with 10 clicks of compression, I went from 6 from fully opened. I like to run my suspension just a little bit more firm so that when I start really gaining speed and hitting those gnarlier, more difficult trails, that I'm not blown through all my travel. But this RockShox Yari fork is very supple off the top. I was very happy with how this was performing with that Debon air spring from RockShox, and I honestly think that depending on the type of trails you ride, this might be the only fork you need, and you might not even need to upgrade. However, having said that, I do plan on taking this bike on the gnarliest trails I can find, black diamond, double black diamond, bike park laps. So you can upgrade the damper on this Yari, and basically you can turn this RockShox Yari into a Lyric Ultimate by upgrading it to the Charger 3 or the Charger 2.1 damper right here. So that's something that I might look to do in the future, and I won't know until I start pushing this bike just a little bit further on a little bit gnarlier trails. Where I live right now is kind of in the high mountains of Oregon, so a lot of that stuff is still snow packed and covered with snow. But keep tuned for future videos. I'll be putting this fork through the test. For right now, I say this fork is good for most riders, definitely good for intermediate to advanced level trails, maybe not quite good enough when you start pushing your limits like really hard on expert level black diamond type trails. All right, now moving on to the rear shock. This is a RockShox Select Plus RT rear shock. A bit of a mouthful there, but it's a very simple, very basic rear shock. It's got one rebound dial. You can see that red dial right there. An open close switch for climbing. Flip that when I was climbing on the way up. It definitely firms up the rear shock. This thing performs well. I had no issues with it. And to be honest with you guys, if I had to choose between upgrading a fork or upgrading a rear shock, I would upgrade the fork every single time. I honestly feel like the fork is something that you'll notice right away when you upgrade, to where the rear shock, as long as you get it set up just right, get that sag right, maybe throw some tokens in it if you need to. Usually based off the linkage you have and the rear shock that comes on it, it's designed pretty well for it, and you can usually ride most trails with the stock rear shock that comes on a bike. But that's just my opinion. Leave a comment below, let me know what you guys think. All right, now moving on to the drivetrain on this bike. This got the Shimano Deore drivetrain. So it's got that kind of bottom end Shimano drivetrain with the Deore 12-speed cassette right here, the Deore derailleur, the Deore shifter up here. It did come with the iSpec EV mount for the brakes right here, to where it's got that nice clean cockpit. So I appreciated that, but it's definitely just got that lowest end drivetrain. And to be honest with you, it shifts good. I really didn't have any problems with this thing. Put quite a few miles of climbing. I was riding at Mount Ashland, and definitely got some gnarly long climbs, as well as some little like technical spots to climb up there. And this drivetrain was shifting well. I've got no issues with it so far, and I really think this is probably going to be one of the last things I would look to upgrade on this bike. So for me, Shimano Deore, it's got the thumbs up of approval, and I don't think this is going to affect me, especially since this bike is more downhill focused, and I really just need to be able to make it to the top so I can smash back down. All right, moving on from drivetrain, since I'm already here in the back right here by these tires, it's got these flow snap tires, these V flow snap tires. So really chunky, like 2.6, 29er by 2.6 tires, really aggressive tread pattern, nice, soft, grippy compound on these tires. So they're definitely good when it comes to providing the amount of grip. I will say that for a rear tire, these things are just a little bit too slow. I usually run a DHR2 in the rear, which still has quite a bit of grip, but still this V tire right here, I would say is better for a front tire, and I'm probably gonna look to switch these out and upgrade the tires on this. And honestly, you guys, upgrading your tires and changing and getting the right type of tires for your preference, it's such a personal preference, but upgrading those tires, it's expensive. I mean, you spend like what, like $100 per tire, but it's one of the best upgrades you can do for your bike, no matter how budget your bike is. Getting the right set of tires and not cheaping out on those and spending a little bit of extra money to get the tires that are right for you is the best upgrade you can do. So I do plan on upgrading the tires on this. I'll probably get a couple more rides just to give some good impressions on these when I compare them to probably like the Maxxis tires that I'm switching them to. I'll probably get a couple more rides just so I can do a good versus Maxxis tires versus the V tires that come on this. I also did do the tubeless conversion. If you guys haven't seen my tubeless conversion video, I'll throw that down in the description and throw a link up top. I got the Trail 1 components, tubeless cores right there with the tubeless conversion on these tires, which is pretty simple to do. All right, moving up from the tires right here to the dropper post, you got the TranzX dropper, which the 9.7 slash that I got, it did come with a TranzX dropper. However, it was, I think, just a little bit higher of a model than this dropper post right here. I have it hanging from the dropper in kind of an unconventional way right now, so that's probably not recommended. And some of you guys are probably cringing just seeing me do that. My initial impressions on this dropper is I did have times where it was sticking a couple times coming up. I tried to loosen the torque a little bit on my seat post clamp right here, so I'm hoping that's gonna help with that. But I did have some issues with that dropper post not coming up. Also, the dropper post lever, it's kind of just, I don't know, it's a little bit cheap feeling. I would maybe like to upgrade the dropper post lever. However, those are things that are definitely not essential, especially when you're just talking about an enduro bike that I really just want to be able to make it to the top. So definitely not essential upgrades. However, if I start to have issues with that dropper post, I may look to upgrade the lever to see if that helps at all, and then maybe upgrade the dropper post. Also, it would be nice if I had the iSpec EV dropper post lever that hooks to the brake lever clamp right there just to clean up the cockpit a little bit. All right, now it's time to talk about the brakes on this bike. These are the Shimano MT420 4-piston brakes. They got the 200 mil rotor up front and the 180 millimeter rotor in the rear. The brakes also have this kind of longer brake lever, so not the fancy little like one finger like shortened brake lever that most of us would like, especially when we're riding those enduro bikes or those trail bikes where really you're only using one finger because you want the rest of your fingers that good grip on those bars when you're hitting those gnarlier trails. But initial impressions on these brakes, they performed well. I didn't have any issues with these so far. However, like I said, I was riding a little bit more of a flow trail, mellow, not a super long run, and it's winter time. So I need a little bit more rides on these brakes to really get these things heated up, put them through the test, do some longer, steeper runs where I'm really having to utilize those brakes before I see if I need to upgrade those things. And if I was gonna upgrade my brakes, I'll give you guys the top 2 things I would do to these brakes and what could be future videos coming up. The Shimano brakes, first of all, for any brakes, 200 mil rotor up front, 180 rotor in the rear. So the first thing I would look to do is put a 200 mil rotor on the rear, pair that 200 mil front and rear. That could add a little bit of extra stopping power and help if my rear brake's heating up a little bit too much and getting a little bit too spongy as I'm descending down some of those longer runs. Also, another cool thing with these Shimano brakes is you don't have to replace the entire brake caliper if you want to upgrade these things. You can actually upgrade the lever and just buy a Deore or an XT lever for this, which has those shorter brake levers and is a little bit of an upgrade hack for these Shimano brakes. So that's something I might be looking to do, is get bigger rotor in the rear and upgrade the brake levers on these Shimano brakes if I decide that I need to. So initial impressions, I was pretty happy with this bike. The budget level components, I talked about some of the upgrades I think I might want to do as I continue to push this bike to the limits, ride more gnarly trails, and enter some of those upcoming enduro races. So stay tuned to this video. I'll be throwing the videos right down there. Leave a comment below. Let me know if there's any upgrades you guys would like to see me make on this bike, because it's all about getting you guys stoked to go ride and have some fun, people.